Good morning, everyone. Welcome to American Scouser's morning coffee or tea with American Scouser. It's Monday. Grumpy is in the house, and
Grumpy,
Grumpy's there. Grumpy. It's Monday.
but there was no fixture over the weekend to spoil your weekend.
I don't know, but there's a fixture coming. Maybe that's
Okay,
Grumpy's
yeah,
out either
it's
way.
and it's a big one. So yeah, I guess it's preliminary. Grumpy.
It is a big one. Good morning, and we have the coffee over there with the Polish Prince. He's even drinking it, so
You
it must
know,
be semi-fresh.
I thought about just going with straight vodka because yesterday we uh, we lost in the playoffs of our men's league basketball game by 3 points, and I ended up losing my fantasy league basketball championship by 3 points. So I don't know what kind of karma this is for what something I did in the past, but whatever it was, I'm sorry, and I hope that I'm good now because that was rough.
Damn. So this was basketball fantasy is even worse than Premier League, I feel, because it's just the number of games and stuff you gotta bear in mind, or has that changed over the
There's
years?
there's different ways you can set up to play. The way that we have it set up, you lock in what players one of their games during the week, but you can't lock it in before their next game. So let's say they had a pretty decent game and you want to lock in their points that game, you just lock it in. Or if you want to ride it, then you can wait till their next game, and then you can just kind of sub people in. And
So you guys, as fantasy players, must be loving this load management concept. Then.
oh yeah, that's fantastic.
I'm sure. I'm sure. A lot of NBA
Too many
fans,
games. Too many games.
which I mean, yeah. To be fair, it is too many games,
Yeah.
but gotta make money somehow, I guess, because those
Most of the
tickets are
revenue comes through
expensive
the
as hell.
playoffs. It's just ridiculous. They could cut it down quite a bit and still be fine.
And they expanded the playoffs, so there are only more games now than anything else.
Yeah,
So.
one team, and not to make this a basketball morning show, but just to put into context, one team could potentially play 28 playoff games. That is about a third of the regular season. That's ridiculous.
That is ridiculous. That is ridiculous. That's a whole fucking lot of games.
Yeah.
Alan says he's on top of his team's prediction league. Yeah, the prediction league they do. Yeah, that is kind of like hard to keep up because I think they have like different leagues and stuff like that too. I've seen like posts and stuff on Facebook, but yeah, I just don't want to even dip my toes into that because it's just going to be
You'll have
another
no
thing
life.
I'm going to leave halfway. Kind of like the other, I just can't. After a while, and I'm like, yeah, if I'm not like really into it, after a while, I just lose interest. And once you lose interest, it's like,
Fun.
yeah, too much of a commitment. So let's go with some headlines. Obviously, no games over the weekend except international games. I did see that Poland didn't fare so well though, so I'm sure that
Did we
was.
even have to bring that up? I thought we would be able to
Sorry,
just
so
scroll right through this show without even a single mention of that. Oh, here we go. Yeah.
But it looks like the key game for them is this next game, right? Am I looking at that right? Like
Yeah.
today, actually, they play Albania.
Yep.
In that group, they can say, okay, Czechs, you guys give Czech Republic the top seed now, and then say, we're going to go for seconds. I mean, Moldova and Faroe Islands obviously are not a competition. I mean, you never know. Moldova is one of those deals where it can be tough sometimes in an away game or something like that. But really, Albania is the opposition. So if they win today, they're still on track.
Yeah, they should be absolutely fine. If they drop points at all to any of the other three nations, they're done. That's just it. I think that's where it's at right now. They can't afford to drop any points against them.
Conte, I didn't see that come. Yes, who saw that coming? I guess what I didn't see coming is it taking so long. So why do you think it took so damn? I mean, it literally took a week. We talked about it last Monday, and we figured it was kind of imminent. That was the resignation rant, and it took literally a full week before they got rid of him. Why do you think it took a week?
I don't know. Because we thought it was a done deal by then, and that was we talked about it as if okay, this is happening, and then every day it's like, did it actually happen, or did we make this up? Like, are we dreaming something? Because we saw the news. We saw this, we saw that, and it's like, what? I mean, what? But here's the question: would you rather have this ongoing, imminent process for a week, or would you rather be like Nagelsmann and find out over Twitter that you got fired?
You're like, honey, refresh that feed. We might have to move.
His partner, they broke up that day too. So actually, she was refreshing the feed too much, I think. Because they split after that too. Yeah, he had a tough day. He had a very tough day.
Good morning of all. I mean, I don't know. Was she like a gold digger? That's kind of cold, right? She's like,
No, I don't think so. It's
well,
just
I'm out of here, honey.
yeah, it was tough. I saw that and I was like, that could not get. That's almost as bad as my double loss yesterday. Almost.
Is this the wife or a girlfriend?
I don't remember if it was wife or I think
It's
it
a
was
girlfriend. Maybe she lives in Munich, and they're like, "Hey, you're gonna have to move now," because.
And she's like, "Nope, stay here." My love knows. You know, the people say my love knows no bounds. Her love is bound by the Munich borders.
The Munich metropolitan area is where she stops. That's where my love stops. It was by mutual consent. Yeah, I mean, it is. I mean, I guess it is mutual. Which one is mutual consent? I mean, definitely not the content one. I can see. The other one is more like unawareness, more than anything else. There's no consent there. Yeah, that is odd. I mean, but here's the thing. I do want to see a documentary of this week at the Tottenham grounds. I know like some of the players like were given time off and stuff like that, but I want to see the offices and the tenseness of the environment as Conte is like walking around like it's like dead man walking, and he's like, I don't care. So I don't understand how they went a week like that in a working environment where a guy pretty much fired is still there.
Yeah, I mean, because that you can only imagine the effect that might have on some of the players and some of the staff, just not really knowing what's going on, and then thinking, well, is this how this is going to be treated? You know, in any situation, are we going to have to kind of live through more situations like this where people are just on their way out, but not really told that they're on their way out, and then they're just kind of lingering around, and like you said, you just don't know how to feel what's going on. You look over your shoulder, Conte's there, but then you look over your other shoulder, and it's like, well, he's not supposed to be there either. And so it's really, I don't understand why it took so long. Maybe Levy and Conte were trying to have conversations to kind of meet in the middle somewhere. Maybe Levy really wanted Conte to apologize because he hurt his feelings about the whole no winning anything in the last 20 years. And Conte was like, you can wait a week. I won't fucking do it. And then after a week, Levy's he's like, I will. There's nothing else I can say to you. It's true. And then Levy's like, after a week, he's like, all right, I tried to call his bluff, and no, he's
because of the mutual consent thing. I don't know if it was kind of like the what you want to call it, the compensation part of it or something like that they were like, okay, we're working on that, and then Conte is like, well, if you need me, I'll be in my office. He's like, okay, Antonio, like he just like leaves. I don't understand, like a whole that week goes in the office environment over there. Can you sign this? He's like, I don't know, even if I'm here. So that's kind of like an awkward deal. I don't know why they would wait a week, but I don't know, like I say, I know some people had it off, so maybe that's why. The other deal, the whole Bayern deal, I mean, that's as a manager, I'm sure you kind of know, like, it's coming. Like 2 weeks ago, they gave you their full backing or something like that. Like, you're like, oh, it's coming, baby. I'm about to get canned. But that has to be I've been in situations like where I've talked to people where they're just literally looking at the door to see like the boss walk in to be taken out. And I would not want to be in that situation. But I don't even know if this guy saw it coming, because if you find out from Twitter, that is just the worst way to get canned, probably.
Yeah, and it just doesn't make any sense. They're betting favorites to win the Champions League, so he's gotten them there. They're within striking distance of winning the Bundesliga again, which, I mean, of course, for Bayern it's what's expected because they've won 10 of the last 11 or whatever the case is. But it's not like he's 8 points behind. He's been able to keep that team afloat, and they have Dortmund and City coming up next.
Yeah.
And it's like, why would you want to change the manager before two of the biggest matches of the season? It doesn't make sense, because what is Tuchel going to come in and do that Nagelsmann couldn't do? He's been there for a year and a quarter, year and a half, and he was like finally getting his team the way set up he wants to get them set up. And being online on seeing the discourse, just seeing Bayern fans are just really, really frustrated and upset by this because they don't understand why. It didn't make any sense to them. It's not like he was underachieving or underperforming. Maybe in the Bundesliga, some matches haven't gone their way, but that's just, maybe other teams have finally gotten a bit better, and it's not, not completely a one horse race anymore.
Yeah, it almost looks like the moment Tuchel was available, they kind of had their eyes set on him, perhaps, because I don't know if it was on the Friday show. I don't know if we talked with you on Monday, but we looked at like the record, and there was a period in like January or so where you can see him getting fired because there was like a constant like back to back to back to back poor results in the Bundesliga, but it didn't happen then. Things kind of seem to turn around. I know they just lost points and they fell behind and stuff. Maybe they're like, hey, I mean, the league is almost over. We're still not up by 5 points. What the hell is going on? Kind of a deal. Or like it's a team with a lot of veteran players there. I wonder if there's something going on behind the scenes where those guys like Kimmich Miller and stuff like that, like, yeah, this guy is not going to cut it. You know, some guys are not happy, blah, blah, blah. And then they had Tuchel. They're like, why not? Let's do it. I mean, I know sometimes that new manager smell kind of can help. And I don't know if they felt like this would be a perfect time for it. Because like you said, that Dortmund game is huge. I mean, they win that Dortmund game, which they have been dominant against Dortmund for the most part in the recent years. If they win that, everything is back to glory days again. I think they just did not want to risk, or maybe because it's the international break, if we're going to can him, we got to can him now. Because if he loses to Dortmund or something like that, now you can't can him because there's the Champions League game and stuff like that. Like, you know, every day you're playing every 3 days. But yeah, either way, definitely not professionally done. I mean, the least you can do is pick up the phone or send a text like, you know, we can't see each other anymore or something like that. Or, you know, your box is in front of the club's door or something like that. I mean, something to kind of at least like let them know.
Yeah,
but yeah, that is a Orsalo deal.
Can you imagine if Tuchel comes in and they lose against Dortmund and City? Like, what is the response from Bayern then? You know, this could go really south. If Tuchel comes in and they don't win both of those games, everyone's going to look at them and go, what was the point?
I guess Tuchel can't lose though, can he? Because he can always say, I mean, what do you guys? I'm not a magician.
No, yeah, Tuchel's fine. He's fine. It's the response that the club is going to get from the fans, from the media, from everyone else going, what was the point of doing that?
Yeah, because I mean, for a team like Bayern, I mean, it's kind of has to be weird to be a Bayern fan. I mean, you know, as somebody obviously Turkish, like a Fenerbahce fan, there's always like, you know, Fenerbahce, Galatasaray, Beşiktaş. Occasionally, you can throw in a 4th team in there competing. It's usually 2 teams that make a run for it, but you're competing against somebody every season. It's never like over. I mean, what do they have won? Like 9 or 10 in a row or something obnoxious like that. So I think when you're a fan like that, I don't know, are you just waiting for Champions League and nothing else? We got to get a Bayern fan or a PSG fan on here to tell us they in the life off. Like, do you even care if you win or draw on a weekend because you're already up by 8 points in most cases? For example, if you're PSG and all your eggs are in this Champions League baskets and you are already still in the Champions League, so it's not like you were eliminated there, so this season is a disaster or something like that. Yeah, it is odd. That's why I feel like there was something happening behind the scenes. And I know in terms of timing, and that's like, we'll get back to this now. I mean, we just set a record. I guess Premier League set a record with 11 managerial changes after 10. I think it was 10, like it said like 4 seasons ago or something like that. So this is probably the last shot for teams to make a change to save their season. Either, you know, like go for the top 4 or like get out of relegation zone or whatever it might be. So look, 11 is not I mean, 11 is like a month in the Turkish league. But people get fired before the season starts, like during preseason, poor preseason results and stuff. So that's nothing. But why do you think this number keeps going up? Is it just the money? People are like, hey, we can't afford it, so we got to make a change now, kind of a thing, instead of being patient?
That could probably have a little bit to do with it. I think also today everything is a lot more results oriented as quickly as possible. I don't think there's enough time given for an opportunity as there used to be. I think part of it because we live in a world that's so quickly connected right now. You know, you could get whatever information you want within seconds. You pull out your phone, you go on your computer, you can find anything you want.
It's like, I'm fired.
Exactly. And so I think because of that, we expect to see so much so quickly all the time. And if you're not seeing that right away, you start to get really impatient a lot quicker than you would, let's say, maybe 20 years ago when things weren't as readily available all the time, or things weren't as quickly developing all the time. And I think there's a big thing to do. There's a big thing to say when a lot of what we do nowadays really goes back to how we interact with each other over social media, over the internet. I think that has part to do with it. If you are an owner of a club and you sit on the internet, sometimes you just scroll through forums or you scroll through Facebook or whatever the case, and you just happen to just get bogged down by all the comments, by all the negativity, whatever the case might be. You might think, okay, well, maybe have I approached this the wrong way? Have I not been paying attention to something? And sometimes, I doubt there's many of these owners who actually sit on Facebook and look at these things. But I think the point remains the same, is that there's a lot of voices that can reach you now that couldn't reach you before. And I think that could be.
So you're saying it's more like peer pressure, like they're giving, or like fan pressure, I guess?
Yeah, in a sense, because you could have a lot more, even if it's not fans, but more maybe higher up fans in a way, more public voices, like let's say the Anfield Rap, right? Things like that, where you could hear that more often than you would have than just a beat writer from 25 years ago that threw something in a paper that you're never going to see. So I think maybe part of it is that we just want results so quickly now. We always want it's that instant gratification. If we don't get that right away, especially when it comes to millions of dollars and millions of financial success, then you want to make the change a lot sooner than before.
And that's a good point. That's probably a huge part of it. And I know another part of it probably is the fact that, it's a lot of money being spent, like you said, in terms of, giving resources. So if you're an owner, and you might be a bit less patient if you're like, I just spent 200 million on freaking like the guys you wanted, and this is the shit we're getting, kind of an ordeal too. So, and like I said, there's a lot of writing on the line, because we probably spent that 200 million because we were hoping to not get relegated, so we're gonna get 600 million or whatever anyway. It was for a cause. Mm-hmm. And when you spend the money, I guess it's a lot easier to panic. I don't know if I could own a club. That would be a very tricky situation for me, because heck, you're looking at the Discord channel, I can see a couple of people that comment there that would fire their guys every freaking Sunday.
I would need to learn to not be on the internet ever, which would be very hard.
That's part of it, right? So you don't listen to stuff, because it'd be really difficult to not say anything back. But at the same time, it's almost like that's the only control you have, it feels like, to like change things around. You just you can change the manager, or you can get your own guy that's gonna maybe do things your way. But I feel like in smaller leagues, you might be able to, as an owner, dictate some things to the guy you're hiring. But in a league like Premier League, the guys you're bringing in usually have more than enough egos, where they're coming in with their own system, or you're bringing them in based on already how they play, and they're not going to really care what the owner's input is. It's more professional, I think. You hire them, and that's good. Whereas in small, like in the Turkish league, where the owner can be like, "Oh, come on, Ahmet doesn't play on the right wing," and stuff like that. They're like, "Because I don't like him on the right wing." Well, then I don't like you. And then, get the next guy in. And when you bring the next guy in the interview, you're like, "And I want Ahmet to play on the right wing." And, if you want the job, you're like, "Sure, why not?" And that's why you get a lot of like retread guys, kind of like similar to the NBA, where there's so like the same guy getting hired over and over again. So he probably just walks in the room. We're like, "You want him as small forward? Sure, why not? Whatever, I don't care." Like maybe get canned in 2 years anyway, kind of a deal. So, and I know in some way, and that's what I think. Like that's why my theory on Bayern is that as players get more and more and more and more, I almost would assume that their voices are becoming more and more valuable to the owner, because you spent a ton of money. You're spending like $500,000 on this guy every week, so you want to make sure he's happy. And if that means changing a manager, so be it, you think?
Yeah, and this kind of ties back to our conversation last week about how much do you want the owner involved in the day-to-day, right? And that's something too. I think if we find owners who want to be more involved in that day-to-day, they're going to see these managers as just, as carousels where they can take one, move it out, bring another one in. Because if the owner's going to be the one that's going to be there every day, they know that like you said, that's the one way they can handle the situation, the one way they can control the situation is by changing the manager. If they can't really do much else on the field, they're just going to do it on the actual with the actual manager. So I think that definitely does have part of it. And I don't know. I also saw that maybe, and this was just a couple comments from something that I read from Bayern fans online, not necessarily a reputable source by any means, but people were saying that Oliver Kahn might have been a little nervous about Nagelsmann's potential overall because he was younger and he wanted to build an empire with Bayern. He wanted to be there for a long time. He wanted to be like the Alex Ferguson for Bayern, coming in and having that. And Oliver Kahn was kind of threatened by the image of that and didn't want him to have more of that image and more of that power. So he kind of got in front of that before anything happened. That seems a little far-fetched, but not also like incredibly far from the truth, because Oliver Kahn has an ego, and that's what it always comes back to, is it's a clash of egos between owners and managers, and you're muted.
But you bring Tuchel in? You know what I mean? As like, if that's your concern, you didn't really bring a guy that doesn't have a lot of ego to him.
Yeah, but Tuchel also isn't sort of this bright, energizing, fun, new, young face that could be the face for a decade. Like Tuchel, he could be there technically for 10 years. I'm not saying he's old by any means, but he's not someone that people look at Nagelsmann and go, he is one of the most exciting new young managers in the world right now. Like, you see what he's at Bayern at his age doing what he's doing. This is exciting. He could be here for a long time. And so Tuchel, yeah, he could be there for 5 years if he wanted to be, but I don't think it's ever going to get that far.
So you're fired from Twitter, and then you're like, okay, well, I guess I'll go pack my shit. And if you're him, do you kind of like, I feel like you don't want to go to another job in Bundesliga. I mean, there'll be a lot of suitors for this guy in the off season. So now you started a long summer vacation. You have like 3 months over here before you even like start talking to people about offers and stuff. Do you go to another team in the Bundesliga where you roll the dice, or do you just wait for like another big club, maybe like a Premier League team or whatever, to approach you and then go about it that way? Kind of cash in on your current status, because you go to a team like, I don't know, like Frankfurt or somewhere like that, and you don't perform well, that stock just dips instantly. We know how the soccer world works.
Right. And you're always going to be in Bayern's shadow, no matter what.
Yeah.
Leaving Bayern to go to another club, unless you're able to take a Frankfurt and win the Bundesliga, which is going to be very difficult in that league, you're always going to be in the shadow, and everyone's always going to look at you going, this was never the right decision for you. So I think he does make a move elsewhere. He's not, like you say, he's not tied down by family anywhere right now to Munich, so he can get up and move. And I know there's probably going to be some Premier League clubs that might have a little bit of interest. I know there were small rumors that Tottenham could look into someone like Nagelsmann, which I don't know if they have any of the right pieces to kind of, I mean, Kane and Mueller, you could say they play similarly in a way, because they're really both deep dropping playmakers. In a way, Kane is just better at it than Mueller, but Mueller has had the advantage of being around really, really good players his entire career. So he's been made to look, not to say he's not good, but he's been made to look even better because they've been able to succeed with everyone else around him. So I think if I'm Nagelsmann, I take a few extra months, see what happens, and then make a move to a club, and like you said, cash in on your reputation, or cash in on what you've accomplished so far, and then try and, it's almost like there's nothing to lose if you do go out and try in a different country, in a different language, just because. Yeah. Because if anything, you can always come back to the Bundesliga, I think.
Exactly. See, if I'm like doing the career, and if I'm kind of like, like not sure which way to go, because you feel like I already have a job anytime I want in the Bundesliga. Yeah. So I feel like it would be a good time for him to venture out to the Premier League. And, in most cases, you're going to say Premier League. And he will be, I think there'll be suitors for him because of the style of play and stuff like that, and like the influence. And like I say, he's kind of like, up and coming kind of guy. But And then, yeah, if it doesn't pan out, you were like, yeah, I just couldn't adjust to the Premier League, back to the Bundesliga, and then, just get a job in one of the top teams and continue your career that way. But Alan says if Tuchel would smile just once on camera. Yeah, that's another thing. Like, he's like a really abrasive figure too. So like to bring him in is kind of like risky business. I mean, I am kind of rooting for Bayern, I guess, based on who they're playing. But yeah, not in the Bundesliga. So I hope like Dortmund kind of like gets that one, and then they focus on the Champions League or something like that. But
this is for Alan.
There you go. See, there he is on camera, so like with a gun behind it. You can't see it behind the chair. Not featured is there. So let's talk about this real quick. Mason Greenwood news. Mason Greenwood's talking shit about Ronaldo. Like he has I don't know like who's asking him these questions. I guess he did like a TV interview or something like that. I'm assuming this is what came up on. Football Flashback is here. Good morning. So what do you make of the story? I mean, not that he's wrong when he says like Ronaldo's career is dead now. I mean, I love when Instagram still shows like Ronaldo goals like that he's scoring in the Saudi Arabian league over there. Like they're like, he's still got it. Like,
because they have the permission to post that content. The Premier League doesn't give out their rights to any account posting it. So they have to, all I see are Bundesliga clips and Saudi Arabian clips, because those are the only leagues like, yeah, you can use that. You can use it wherever you want. Here, look at Ronaldo walking through this league.
Yeah, so what do you make of that story though? Like him talking I mean, I guess he was also talking about how Ronaldo is a douche to the young kids during practice and stuff like that, like the up and coming guys, which he would not be the first superstar to do it.
No.
I've heard the same thing about Kobe. I've heard the same thing about Jordan. I've heard the same thing about Peyton Manning. Like in different sports, you've heard about this. Like there's not a lot of, GOAT conversation dudes that are like really kind to younger players.
There's a reason that people at that competitive level are the best at their respective positions at their respective sports. They didn't get there because they were nice to everyone. They got there because they were douchebags. Like they were guys who worked their asses off and expected everyone to work as hard as they did.
Yes.
And when people didn't work as hard as they did, they were pissed off because like, if you're not going to help me get to that level, why should I care about what you do? And that's kind of what I equate that to. And no, it is not.
I mean, could be. You never know.
I mean, until I actually see Musharovsky play, I don't know. I could be. We've never seen us, in the same place. So it's one of those.
What is this kid? I was gonna say we have never seen him in the same room. So
he actually
can't deny it.
He did just play in the U21s Poland match the other day. He was. I actually didn't look at it specifically. I saw the team photo and he was in it. So I don't know if he played specifically.
So here's an interesting question. This is like totally going away from the Greenwood conversation.
Yeah.
But Football Flashback asked about the top four, and then he said Mateusz. So I'm going to tie these two questions and make a sandwich. If
I'm not hungry.
Obviously we have some big games coming up. If things don't go our way because can they get top four? Yes. I mean, obviously, as long as it's mathematically possible. Based on what we've seen, do we have a lot of confidence? Probably not. But if the first few games we don't get, the 3 points that we need, because you do need, I think we were talking about earlier, like we looked at it 5 games, I think last week or so, and we said, hey, we got to get at least like 12 or 13 or something like that out of the 15 points available. If we don't get that, would you want to see us use the rest of the season to maybe bring in players like your Mateusz over here and stuff like that, and give him some chances here and there to see if there is something there that's ready for the Premier League yet?
I mean, what I want to
Mateusz is probably a biased question because you're Polish. Let's say in general, not just
yeah. What I want to see it, of course. I think there are plenty of fans who'd want to see it. I don't think we would be able to see it though, because Klopp wouldn't do that. I think at the end of the day, I don't think he would even throughout his entire managerial career here, he doesn't rotate like that. And even if we get to a point where we are mathematically eliminated from getting any sort of top four spot, he's still going to push for 5th. or push for 6th or push for
Yeah.
7th. So I don't think there's going to be a time where he's giving these kids a chance. The time is during the cups, and he doesn't even like to do that all the time anyway, as well.
Yeah.
So he does it sometimes, obviously, but not enough where I think we would like to see him do it. I think when it comes to the league, he's not going to take that chance because he's always going to want to try and finish as high as mathematically still possible.
But at the same, I mean, obviously there's money involved with the rankings. I don't know if it's as much. By the way, Football Flashback says, I kind of can go with that. I hate to say it, 6 from 9. And he says he'll take it. I mean, I guess 6 from 9 isn't too bad, assuming you win the other ones, because these are like the 3 big boys in that like April schedule that we were looking at.
Man.
But I don't know. Let's hope so. I mean, I'll take that, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I would happily take. I don't see us putting 4 past Arsenal with them only scoring 1, though. I think.
Yeah, I was gonna 4-2, 4-3.
Yeah, I think if we take 6 from 9, I honestly think it's a win against City and Chelsea and a loss against Arsenal. Even though the City game is an early morning game, which is awful. City's not been good in early morning games either, though. So that's early morning for us, not for them. But I think if there is 6 from 9, it's City and Chelsea that wins, not Arsenal.
So I agree. I really think, though, I kind of agree with this. I think we beat Arsenal at home, especially if you're coming off of beating Chelsea away. I do think we beat Arsenal at home. 4-1, I'm not sure. I do see more 4-2, 4-3. And sadly, I am worried about that right now. So here's the thing. Let me play devil's advocate to the question I just asked earlier. If you are Mo, if you are Nunez, if you are, I don't know, Fabinho, Van Dijk, and stuff like that, do you, even if you kind of like lost your chance at top 4 or it doesn't look well for top 4, do you want to see that if you're Mo and stuff out there? Like almost, because it does look like you're throwing in the towel if you see Mateusz lining up with you in the starting lineup. You're like, oh, what are we now? Like just testing out kids over here?
Yeah.
Do you want to see that? So at the same time, can you see why Klopp would not go for that and say, no, we're always going to shoot for higher and not throw them? I just played total devil's advocate for you. Enjoy.
I don't even.
How the tables have turned.
I think if they did see someone line up next to them like that, it would be a sort of a punch to the gut because, like you said, it is kind of like throwing in the towel because unless you want to always continue to, you theoretically want to put out your best 11 every chance you get, right? Unless it's a situation where you're afforded the luxury of being able to sit and rest some of your players. Now, saying that, I mean, it's not going to always happen if we do have that luxury to rest players because as we've seen in the past, even when we have the opportunity, we don't. And that's when Jota got hurt in the Champions League, when he didn't need to, when we were up 6 points clear of first place in the group and he goes out against Midtjylland and hurts his knee and is out for several months. And so I don't know which part of the question that I was supposed to answer, but I don't expect to see anything different for the rest of the year.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I don't either. I would just like starting it away. Football Flashback says I'd start Diaz right away. Diaz, Nunez, Salah up top.
I think you have to work him back slowly. I wouldn't. You've got to bring him in for like 30 minutes and maybe not these 3 fixtures either. Unless you really need a spark. Like let's say they lose against City, and then they're down 1-0 against Chelsea, and it's like the 50th minute, and you need that spark. Then maybe Diaz comes in. But I think it's all dependent on results because if they can get a good result against City and get a good result against Chelsea, maybe they have the luxury of putting Diaz out against Arsenal because they took those 2 fixtures well and can take a chance. And it's at Anfield, like you said. But so I think it's all dependent on what the results are like. I think from match to match, that's going to be really important to see what happens because then we'll see if there's what the pivots are from there.
Yeah, I agree to that. I would not, based on what happened, especially like if it was a guy who was coming back from injury, like knowing Klopp, he comes in the last 20 minutes the first game and then maybe plays a half and then comes in, starts. and especially what happened with him, like we were expecting him to come back during the World Cup and he had a setback. So especially with a guy that had a setback, I'd rather play it safe, rather have him come in 10, 15 minutes for a while. And then by then, I think, going back to our conversation earlier, I think by then you kind of know what your chances are and what you can do. So then you can kind of decide if you want to play it bigger risk or you kind of like really keep him at like a light load. I mean, he was by far our best player, really, but like on pitch player after probably Ali on, in the starting 11. Yeah. And we kind of forget about that now because we got Nunez coming in and stuff like that, and Gakpo came in and stuff. So we had like the fans had a new shiny toy to watch. So kind of like Diaz was the forgotten man, but he was like the biggest name that we had circled in terms of coming back over like, the World Cup, and it did not happen. And I really think that it would be a whole different season if he comes back, because I think he adds a lot to Robertson's game and stuff like that as well. They kind of ended up doing a good chemistry. He was dangerous cutting in, coming inside and stuff like that. So, I mean, if anything, I would like to see if the top four looks out of reach, I would like to see us kind of try these different things. Like, can we do 4-2-3-1 and play Gakpo behind, for example, Nunez and stuff like that? I would rather test those things out as opposed to test the young kids out.
Absolutely. I think that's perfect. I think if you are going to take some sort of risks in the way you play, make it tactical risks and not personnel risks. Yeah. You can see what could work in the following year, or just test some things out just to see if this setup is going to look as good as you might think it does on paper, or if it might look better than you thought it might have looked. Maybe there's a situation where you do want to try out that you thought maybe this formation isn't the way that, that's going to work, but then you throw it out there and it's just perfect. Who knows? So yeah, I agree with you 100%. I would rather test out formations than test out personnel.
Yeah, I mean, because there are times where you kind of stumble upon things just by, having to do it by force in a game or something like that. You're like, holy shit, that worked out really good. Klopp is not that kind of guy. I mean, we've seen it over and over again. If he feels like if they had not practiced a specific thing a bazillion times, he does not roll the dice and go with it, or like even try it. Like, we got to spend a month on this in the off season if we're going to do it, kind of thing. And I think that's like the biggest thing that have hurt us too, even though we brought Nunez and stuff in the short off season because of the World Cup and stuff. Hurts a coach like Klopp, I think, more than anybody else, because he kind of needs to establish that, and our press has to be dead on to protect the midfield, to protect the back line and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, before we go over here, what is your kind of feeling going into the weekend? Like, are you like, let's see what happens? You're like, we got this. There's no way we're getting this. Where are you at?
I wish we were in a position where, like, if we drop points, it wouldn't be so devastating, because then you can kind of relax a little bit more going into the weekend. But these next three fixtures are so huge. Like, this is like, the second leg against Madrid, we kind of felt like there needed to be a really big miracle. So I think most of us were pretty content with whatever was going to happen was going to happen. Like, so be it. Now it's more so we really need a good result this weekend. And if we don't get a good result this weekend, I feel like it's gonna feel worse than the comeback, 5-2 comeback Madrid had in the Champions League, because that will kind of feel like this was the moment. Or, when we dropped points a couple weeks ago and against a team that you shouldn't drop points against. It's kind of like one of those moments. I know it's City, so it should be expected that there's a good chance that they drop points, but I feel like it's just one of those moments in the season where this needs to be at least a great result. If not, it's just going to really hurt the rest of the way.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I'm really torn on this. I don't have a great feeling about it. It's going to be one of those games where you sit back and let's see what happens. I think the fact that this international break helps, getting Henderson like how he should be, hopefully Fabinho how he should be, like fresh for this game. And that's kind of like our only shot, I think, is having that midfield play the way it does. City can be hurt, going forward. And I think we have the players to go against it and hurt them. it's just a matter of, will that midfield be able to, you got to work really hard against City. Even then it's difficult. We'll be able to do that. That's like the biggest thing I think that it comes down to. But
and I think,
it's good. Go ahead.
I think from a team standpoint, I mean, this is the team that has beat you to the title, several times in the last several years. As a club, you might want to take this more personally and go, we're going to stop you from winning the league at this point. If we can beat you this weekend, we know how much more difficult it's going to be for you to try to catch Arsenal to win the league, because like we want to be the ones that finally get some sort of revenge. It's at the expense of Arsenal winning the title still, but I feel like there could be a little bit of that personal just responsibility of wanting to get something out of this from a team that has taken from you so much in the last few years. So like, let's do that for that more than anything.
I think so. I feel like this is a game, and that's the kind of thing that's going to be more aggravating, I think, right? Like if they go out and like smash City, you're like, God damn it, when you guys really want to, kind of a thing, because these are the games we play a lot better at.
Yes,
and then you see Bournemouth and you're like, shit the bed, and then you're like, we just wasted what we did last week, and we've seen this over and over again. It's just that consistency, but honestly, that's what good teams do: consistently win and win when they don't play well. I mean, even when we won the title and stuff like that, I mean, there were games where we would not play well. And when we had these runs, even when we lost by a point or whatever, there were games where we did not play well, but found a way to win and scored the last minute goal and kept going and stuff like that. I just don't think we are able to pull that off this season. And it shows, and it's a huge difference. I can only think of the Newcastle game where we, like stormed to, get the 3 points in the last gasp. But I can't think of a lot of games where we really came back, roaring back, and then like won the game. And a lot of those games where you drop, it's like 2 points here, 2 points there. That's why you're not a title contender right now. And we're like discussing being able to get top 4. But it's going to be an interesting week. I think these next 2 weeks will determine how the rest of the season is going to be in terms of the conversations we're going to have. But let's hope for the best and start even like, I know like all the conversation has already shifted to summer during this entire international break. Part of it is because what agents are throwing out there, and part of it is because fans have already given up on the season, so they're already looking ahead. I think, it'll only get worse if these next 2 weeks results do not go our way and we don't get the 6 from 9 that Football Flashback was talking about. So 6 from 9, are you happy with, by the way? I never went to that.
I think 6 from 9. I think that's the goal. I think if you ask most people, 6 from 9 is what would feel best. Of course, I mean, 9 out of 9 would feel amazing.
Best, yeah.
That would feel the best. 6 out of 9 is enough where we feel like that's something that we can expect, especially because this team likes to show up for the big matches. These are 3 big matches. And so I think 6 out of 9 is a realistic possibility. And I think anything 5, let's say a win and 2 draws, still fine. I think anything less than 4 is going to really hurt.
Oh, I think anything less than 6, you're done.
I think if you can squeak out 2 draws and a win, I think that's out of those 3. I think that's still okay.
I guess it depends on what the other boys are doing too, like what Newcastle is doing and stuff like that. But all this time, you kind of like when you looked at those standings, you kind of looked at it as like the game in hand being 3 points, and you're like, we're 2 points away if we win that one, kind of a deal. So if you only get 1 point from that, obviously it increases that gap. Yeah. So, well, let's hope for the best. I'm sure we'll talk a lot more about it on tonight's podcast with the boys. We'll have the trivia back and all that kind of good stuff. And so meet us then, 8 o'clock Central over here live on Facebook. No, it is not. It's 7 o'clock Central. God damn it. I do this every week. 7 Central, 8 Eastern. I have to get like a wrist thing that I look it up over here. So 7 o'clock Central, 8 o'clock Eastern, live over here, Facebook, YouTube, you name it. We'll do our regular Monday podcast and talk more with the boys as we look ahead to a huge April ahead of us over here. Mateusz, thanks as always. Good luck to your boys today. My boys play tomorrow. Huge game against Croatia. After how they beat Armenia away. But watching that game, I'd be happy with a mild spanking by Croatia. It felt like, but it's home and everything, so you never know. Things can change. But we'll be back Monday tonight, and then Wednesday morning again with Rami and hopefully Gordo joining us as well for the breakfast show. And then keep an eye out for the fundraiser news. Mateusz over here has been really hands-on and doing a lot of the work for our Stallions auction. So that should be ready to go later this week, actually. But just keep an eye on all the social media. I'm sure we'll announce the heck out of it as well. So have a good one, everybody. Enjoy the week. Let's hope it's a good week for all involved. Take care.